Welcome to Sound the Horn Sports Show. I'm so excited to host this groundbreaking program that will broaden the Jackson sports scene's awareness regionally and nationally. My goal is to highlight sports in Jackson, the state of Mississippi, and nationally by utilizing my 25 years of Division I athletic administration knowledge, and my guests will be experienced leaders in sports. The guest on the show will share a behind-the-scenes, unique, and informative glance of the world of sports. Please join me every Monday and Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on WeBelieveDigital.com. Welcome to the Sound the Horn Sports Show, and I'm your host, Derek Horne. Visiting with a good friend of mine, and he and I think our age is showing with all this technology. We're working to get on, so right now I'd like to go and introduce my special guest, Mr. Lynn Thompson, Senior Advisor with the MEAC and former Athletic Director at Bethune-Cookman. How you doing, Lynn?
I'm doing good, man, and I'm so glad to finally connect with you digitally.
Well, I'm so glad that you had an opportunity to be a part of the show, and what we're trying to do is talk with different sports figures across the country. Basically, we start out of Jackson, but try and work our way out, not only talk about local sports, but also just the national impact. And from your years of experience, I thought you would be great to be a guest on our show, and I'm looking forward for our viewers to get to know a little bit about you. So to kick that off, if you would, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your hometown, and which high school you went to, and sports you played in high school.
Oh, man, Derek, that seems so long ago, seems like another lifetime ago. But I'm a Florida boy. I was born and reared in Daytona Beach, Florida. Spent some time in other parts of the country, particularly Atlanta and Wisconsin. But I played high school football, basketball, and AAU baseball here in Daytona Beach at Mainland High School. And everybody knows Mainland High School is Vince Carter's high school, but for a while there, it was Lynn Thompson's high school, way back in the day. And every good athlete feels that way. This is my school. Those are my hallways. We walk those hallways. But we have to also give that banner away eventually, because time produces great other athletes and leaders. And I'm just privileged and honored to be a part of a great lineage of phenomenal student athletes who came out of Daytona Beach Mainland High School.
I think it's great to have an opportunity not only to grow up in the community, but then, live out your dream, particularly in what you would like to do being there. So what we're going to do is stick around high school for a little while. When you were in high school, who were some of the schools that recruited you as it relates to trying to get to that next level collegiate?
Well, I was fortunate that I had a high school football coach who convinced me that football was going to be my future instead of basketball. Here I was, a 6'2" shooting guard who played behind the coach's son, who had played behind me all the way up to high school, and then they put me down at power forward, backing up 2 6'9" guys, and my minutes were limited. And so I had a football coach who knew that I played. Back then they had junior high, middle school football and things like that, and I had a real good middle school career, and he convinced me going into my 11th grade year to play football, and I became the quarterback and handled all the kicking. And as a result, I had numerous scholarship offers from schools like Western Carolina, Bethune, FAMU, and also an offer from the Air Force Academy, and amongst other schools. But those are the ones that I was seriously considering, and I was fortunate that Bethune-Cookman came in. It allowed me the opportunity to stay at home. My father was a funeral director, and so on Saturdays he was working. And in our culture, most funerals happen on the weekend, and they convinced me that it would be an honor for him, or make it convenient for him, to eventually watch me play some games. And it was the best decision I made in my life, because I go on eventually to to fall into my life's ministry, which was to serve as the vice president of athletics at my alma mater, Bethune-Cookman.
And that's one thing that I think that is a little unique now. And you and I have seen the evolution of recruiting and how kids make their decisions on where they want to go. And it's so unique to have the background that you had to be able to not only accommodate what you would like to do, but then also fit in your family's, I guess you say family's weekend schedules. And me as a former athlete, was blessed to have my parents to travel around and be a part. And some things that I do miss is when I made my decision when I went to college, they couldn't be as accessible to as many games. And I can just imagine your parents and your family being able to watch you participate and play. I'm sure that was just something that was just appreciative from you. But one question I like to ask, and I ask all of our guests, how did your high school experiences kind of shape you to prepare for college?
That's a powerful question, Derek. My high school experiences afforded me the opportunity to be impacted by a village of people who really had my best interests at heart. And I mean, every day I had a man by the name of Harold Lucas, who was the assistant principal at Mainland High School. And during lunchtime, he would come get me and take me out on the field. He was a veteran, former football coach, and worked me out through drills, throwing, kicking, punting, all those things. While everybody else had a lunchtime, I didn't. And he would talk to me about how privileged I was to have an opportunity to be blessed with some talent like that. And not only him, but so many other people in the community who put their hands on me, and they had permission to do that in terms of shaping my life. And each one of those people really poured into me. And as a result, I was able to have a well-rounded athletic and academic career. And I owe that in large part to the village of people who my parents put around me.
So with that being said, what would you go back and tell that 18-year-old Lynn Thompson about preparing for life from what you learned? If you can go back and talk to yourself when you were 18 or a teenager, what would be some of the things that you would share?
I would have, and I was always a hard worker, but I would also focus even greater time on the fundamentals. And I'm talking about the fundamentals of life, not necessarily athletics. You and I both know, and every good athlete has to master the fundamentals. Well, I should have also mastered them fully academically, and I was a good student socially. I was so busy having fun that I didn't realize the impact that I had on other people's lives, even as an 18-year-old kid. And only time gives you that opportunity to look back. But if I could talk to Lynn now and say, watch out for this, pay special attention to this, work hard in this area, I would just tell Lynn to focus more time on your fundamentals.
I think those are things that are key. And just as our paths are similar as it relates to athletic administration, and some of the things that we run across are some of those fundamentals that make or break you as, leading toward your success. And what we were then is what we are now. We find a way to enhance it and improve it. And I do echo what you're saying. A lot of times athletes don't have that understanding if it's more than sports. A lot of times we just think it's all sports, and we put all our time in sports. And if you have people that are around you, a village, they ground you, and they make sure that you have an understanding of that ball is going to go flat sooner or later. And then what is your plan when that ball goes flat? And had my good friend on, Coach Rod Barnes, and we talked about that. And he and I talked a lot in college about what we're going to do next, because we knew that sooner or later, when Father Time catches up with you, you're going to have something else to do. And that's what I've seen that you do and love your career. So what we're going to do right now, Lynn, we're going to close out this first quarter. We're going to give our sponsors an opportunity to share some information with our viewers, and we'll be right back.
Great.
SocratesGarrettENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. SocratesGarrettENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into MDOT grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
Advertise on WeBelieve.global, a brand new digital media platform. Share your brand with our audience on our many global live stream TV broadcasts and over the radio. For more info, visit WeBelieve.global or call 800-492-5186, option 1.
Wedding, milestone anniversary, or corporate event, 5-Star Lodge is the rustic elegance you need for your event space. With hardwood and stunning chandeliers, this is just the beginning of the 5-star treatment. Our on-site venue manager will ensure all details exceed your expectations. We offer a luxurious bridal lounge, beautiful reception hall, cabins, and an outdoor pavilion on the water. Visit 5stareventlodge.com to get started on your most memorable experience.
The Mississippi Link is an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, keepers of the knowledge for people who speak the truth, since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippiLink.com and click on Home Delivery.
Welcome back to the second quarter of the Sound of the Horn Sports Show, and I'm have my dear friend Lynn Thompson here. We're talked a little bit about high school in Daytona, and now we're going to try and keep him in Daytona but move to the collegiate right now. Lynn, I'm going to tell you something that's going to make you laugh. As many times that I've been to Daytona, I didn't know the beach was right over the bridge. Because I'd never been to the beach. Every time we would come down, I would always come to campus, and my wife and I, we came down there on my birthday one weekend, and I'm like, man, I didn't even know all this was down there. So I say that to say this: you've been living in paradise for a long time.
You know, you're right, Derek, and sometimes there's trouble in paradise, but for the most part, I've taken advantage of the natural amenities of Daytona Beach as a kid, and even now as an adult.
Well, we talked a little bit about what got you to Bethune. If you would, just maybe share some of your career highlights while you were a student athlete there at Bethune.
Oh, man. You know, I came into Bethune-Cookman as a recruited and signed as a quarterback. I had a real successful high school career, and they brought me in to do two things: to be an option quarterback and to also punt the football. And so my freshman year, I played behind three great quarterbacks, but I was a starting punter. And made all SIAC conference. We were in the SIAC then. And my sophomore, junior, and senior years had more success kicking the football because I ended up having to take all the place kicking responsibilities and punting. And my time at quarterback was limited because the coach told me, quite frankly, we can't afford for you to get hurt because we lose three other positions. So they gave me limited run at quarterback. I was successful doing that. And as a result from that, I received great interest. I signed with the Green Bay Packers, stayed there a year on the injured reserve list because I got hurt. And after that year was over, I went to grad school. Then they had the USFL, the first version of the United States Football League. And my agent happened to be named general manager of the Orlando franchise, the Orlando Thunder. My roommate who had played with the Washington Redskins signed with them and a couple other friends. And they offered me a deal, but I had to make a decision. And I was in graduate school in Atlanta, Georgia, and I decided to stay in graduate school because I wanted to pursue administration. And so I got a master's degree from Atlanta University, which is now Clark Atlanta University, and moved on to some broadcasting responsibilities with PBS there. I was a sports reporter, I was a feature reporter, and it gave me a chance to serve as a producer. And I didn't realize, but God was putting all those things together for me. Mm-hmm. And athletics and the media and athletics and theater, sports is nothing but the performing arts. And, and so I was able to take all the passion-filled moments of my life, the things I loved best and most, and put them in a big ball. And as a result, I ended up serving at my former institution for 31 years in the capacity that not only was athletic director, but it was executive producer of a variety of mass communication projects that the school put on.
Well, the thing that you brought up, and I tell people this a lot, athletes are performers.
Yeah, absolutely.
What people see on the field or on the court, they think when they see them in public, they're going to see the same thing. And that's not the case, because when you're out there, you have a certain mentality that you have to maintain and a certain laser focus. But when you get away from it, you want to be away from it. And that's one thing I always try to give athletes, that freedom, because I can imagine what they deal with.
Yeah, you're so right, man. And I do, when I do a lot of workshops and seminars with student athletes and leadership development functions, and I tell them the reason why I say athletics is a part of the performing arts. Think about it. The game plan that you study is the script. Mm-hmm. Whatever field of competition you participate in and on happens to be your stage. There's sound, there's lights, and then you have to have the opportunity to improv. In sports, they call it make the adjustment, and sometimes you just got to make it. You got to fake it till you make it. You got to be creative. Derek, you know this as a basketball player with a shot clock. If you get down within 8 seconds of the shot clock, the point guard got to make something happen. So he's got to get creative and go and either pick and roll, penetrate and dish, or go to the rack. And so I tell these stories to all the student athletes, and they don't realize that. But you are great. You are so correct in that the personality on the court and in competition very rarely is the same personality that you see outside of competition.
I think that was for me, and was so unique, and it was so great to have my former teammate on a couple of weeks ago. He would tell you that I probably was the meanest person you ever want to be around. And he would tell you that because I was kind of like the Draymond Green. I was that guy, So, but I was only that on the court. And then what blows people's mind is when you see me away, I'm very reserved. You've known me for years,
right.
Almost close to an introvert. But those are the things that you have to do to be successful. And I don't take it, and I took my role to heart, But I appreciate you still being connected with student athletes, because with all the things that are going on now, more than ever, they need to have that good wisdom and knowledge to be able to navigate what's in front of them, because what's in front of them changes every 2 to 3 years.
Oh my God, does it ever? And I'll tell you this, Derek. People wanted to know why I stayed in college sports for so long. It was because of the energy that you get on campus dealing with young people. And it's infectious, isn't it? And it's also addictive, I would tell some of the young men, my job is to teach you how to be a great husband, father, community leader. Tell you, I got to teach you that chivalry is not dead. I got to teach you respect for self is as important, but respect for others is even greater, and we would take it. It got to the point there that most of us as players, let's say you in basketball, your future was confined to 94 feet, the length of a basketball court. And you thought for a moment or two that you were going to be playing basketball for a vast majority of your life. Or if you didn't make it to the NBA, then you are a failure. The same thing was true with me, that football was far bigger than a 100-yard field, because the opportunities were greater off the field in sports than they were on the field or on the court. And eventually, was able to convince a lot of young people, young men and women, that they could look at sports, the sports industry, sports and entertainment industry, as viable options for them to become professionals and support themselves and their families.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that I thought about even when I got into collegiate administration, I thought about being an assistant coach, but then I looked at the landscape and saw, particularly at PWIs, there wasn't that many people that looked like me working with our folks.
Yeah,
I took it upon myself to make sure that, you're there to let them know that it's not the end of the world when your eligibility is up. It's the beginning of your life, really, because then now you are truly in control of what you do. But one quick question I want to ask you before we get out of this break, still staying in Bethune, when you were in college, how intense were the FAMU and Bethune football games for you as an athlete?
Well, let me say this to you. My junior year in high school was the year that Bethune-Cookman went to Tallahassee, to Bragg Stadium, and beat FAMU and started really the modern rivalry. And let me tell you how intense it was. My freshman year, we lost. We were undefeated, number one in the nation in Division II schools, and played at Doak Campbell Stadium against FAMU, and we lost. Then every year, even though we went 9-2, 8-3, 8-3, 8-3, the success of our season was predicated on that final game. And I happened to play in the very first Florida Classic. I scored the first points. Believe it or not, it was a 43-yard field goal I kicked. And we went up 17-0 into the locker room. And that's where legends are born. And Albert Chester, a good friend of mine who was the legendary FAMU quarterback, led them back to beat us 27-17 and then to go on to win 4 games later the national championship. So that rivalry was intense. It was, and it still is intense. And and I know after sitting at the table together in our respective positions, there's a lot of pressure there, isn't it?
And the reason I asked that because as we get into the third and fourth quarter, we'll talk about when you were working there as an administrator of Florida Classics, but I was interested in just kind of knowing what experience you had because I'm a child of the SIAC. Both of my parents went to Albany State. And I grew up, watching all the games that were played, Albany, FAMU, Bethune, Clark, Atlanta. And back in those times, before our student athletes start transitioning to what they want to call the larger schools, if you wanted to see some great football on a Saturday, you go watch an SIAC game.
Absolutely. You're correct. Growing up with South Georgia, that's what you knew, and it was a cultural thing that still has significant cultural relevance when we talk about the SIAC, the CIAA, the MEAC, and the SWAC now. There's so much more that is based and hinged on that culture of HBCUs, community, and also economic development for our people.
As we get ready to close out this second quarter, when I was at Florida A&M, we were trying to figure out, and you know how tough it is scheduling games sometimes. So I said, let's play Fort Valley. So a lot of those people didn't realize the significance of Florida A&M's membership in the SIAC, didn't realize Fort Valley, Albany State, how that connectivity was. So, a lot of fans were thinking, okay, well, we're playing Fort Valley. We were still selling tickets going into halftime. The line was all up and down Warney's Way because it goes back to what you say, that's family, that's culture. Yeah. That's what all of us known. And it was just not only a financial impact, but I just sat up there in the press box and I looked and I said, we need to make sure that these relationships maintain regardless of whatever division you're in because we have to support each other. So as we get ready to close out this second quarter, we're going to give our sponsors an opportunity to share with our viewers, and we'll be back in the third quarter with Mr. Lynn Thompson working with the MEAC.
wedding, milestone anniversary, or corporate event, 5-Star Lodge is the rustic elegance you need for your event space. With hardwood and stunning chandeliers, this is just the beginning of the 5-star treatment. Our on-site venue manager will ensure all details exceed your expectations. We offer a luxurious bridal lounge, beautiful reception hall, cabins, and an outdoor pavilion on the water. Visit 5stareventlodge.com to get started on your most memorable experience.
Welcome back to the third quarter of the Sound the Horn Sports Show, and I have my guest, Lynn Thompson, and we've talked about him growing up in Daytona and playing high school ball there, being a student athlete at Bethune. Now we're going to talk about life after collegiate sports, and one thing that you shared with me, and you know, we've known each other for a while, but you talked about going to be on the Packers, roster for a year. Who were some of the players that were up there when you went into camp, and kind of what was that experience like going into Lambeau and living in the Green Bay area?
It was cold. Even during training camp, it would be cold in the morning. I had the pleasure of playing. Bart Starr was the head coach, James Lofton was on the team. David Whitehurst and Glenn Dickey were the quarterbacks. There was a guy that took me under his wing by the name of Dwayne Thomas. And Dwayne Thomas was the legendary running back for the Dallas Cowboys. Remember Dwayne Thomas and Calvin Hill back in the day? Well, Dwayne was on the last legs of his career, and he was on the Packers, and he and I became friends. And, I had a torn hamstring with some blood clots in it in my kicking leg. And I was in the hospital for, I think, almost 10 days in Green Bay. And so, the relationships I had with some of those guys lasted for a few years. But my biggest, I guess the biggest takeaway from that was that God gave me the opportunity to make it to that level. My career was very short, but I got to the promised land, and I was able to say that I've gotten the most out of my talents, and it was now time for me to do something else with my life. And that was a lifestyle, and it was great. And I thank God for the opportunity that I had, albeit very short. I don't talk about it much, a lot of my friends and people around here know about it, but I think it gave me an opportunity to focus on the rest of my life at a much earlier age, because there are some friends of mine who have played pro ball, and you've seen them, and and once they're done, they don't know what they're going to do with the rest of their lives. Now, there are some brothers who have done some phenomenal things, and many of them are now giving back to our HBCUs. And I think, that is a wonderful thing that they have taken. They focus on their fundamentals there in terms of developing themselves in every aspect of their lives, and that's what's most important. It allowed me the opportunity to really move into my life's ministry and my life's work at a relatively early age, and get tooled up to do it.
So when you took over at Bethune as director of athletics, it was Division II, correct?
No, we were MEAC then. We were MEAC.
Okay.
Yeah, we were MEAC. We were Division I. In fact, Bethune-Cookman went Division I in 1979, the year after I finished. And FAMU and Bethune jumped into the MEAC then. And of course, stayed into the MEAC until a year ago when both schools migrated to the SWAC conference. But we had enormous success in the MEAC. I was fortunate enough that when I took the job, I was the youngest Division I athletics director in America. And when I retired, I was the longest tenured AD at the Division I level of the NCAA. Was not the oldest, but the longest tenured, And so, Derek, when you look at your career and mine, there are many stops on the way. And I guess the goal is to leave it better than you found it, and to impact as many people's lives as you can while you're at each step on your journey. And so when I hear people who talk to me and say, you provided this opportunity for me, I did what my old man probably wanted me to do. My dad wanted me to just make it better for somebody else, and so that's the beauty of it. But from a AD standpoint, I was blessed to be mentored by Walter Reed, who was one of your predecessors at FAMU. He's in Jackson, Mississippi. And Cy McLaren, Nelson Townsend, who was also a FAMU AD and a great friend and fraternity brother of ours. And those guys really were able to help shape my career and my life, as not only as an administrator, but as a husband and a father and a community leader. Well,
I tell you, the thing that really speaks volumes, and you use the same kind of thought process I do. All I want to do is leave the place a little better than I found it. If I can do that, I've done my job. But one thing that I've always shared with you is I appreciate you because coming into my first time being an athletics director at Florida A&M, and then having you as a resource to just kind of reach out to navigate the conference, navigate the state of Florida, navigate the Florida Classic, but it was helpful, and I've always been like that. It's not what somebody can do for you. You reap your rewards on what you could do for somebody else, and
that is so true.
You've always been that person that I've known that's been a mentor to a number of people. But at the end of the day, we're storing up our timbers, not down here, and that's what I think a lot of people miss out on, because you can't take it with you.
I grew up in the funeral home. As my father, as I mentioned earlier, and now my brother and I own the family business. And you're right, you can't take it with you. And you got to live for the moment. You got to really, really focus your energy on helping somebody else, man. It's that simple. I would love to be. Never wanted to be the scoring leader. Never wanted to be the MVP. I wanted to be the one that was the assist leader, that made it possible for somebody else to score and to win as well, and understand the value of what real winning is. There, being a champion does not mean that you're gonna stand up there at that podium. Think about this. All the Olympic champions and everybody else, people who win, they never say, "I like to thank myself. I did it by myself." They always say, "There's a team of people who made this possible for me, and I want to thank them at this moment."
I always tell people too, when somebody make a hole in one, their name is not the only one in the newspaper. You have to have a witness.
That's right. That's right.
there's.
And, you're right. People who make the hole in ones got to buy drinks too. For everybody, So you got to share the wealth,
Well, you mentioned being a student athlete playing in the first Florida Classic. What were your emotions as you went through to see where the Florida Classic went from your first time as a student athlete to where it is now?
The day we lost to FAMU was my last game, and I had a great game, but we lost, and I was heartbroken. But now, several years later, in 1991, when I go into Tampa, Florida, as the Bethune representative, there was a great deal of responsibility, and it was like, don't mess this up, and even navigating with my good friend Ken Riley from Tampa to Orlando, we had to make some decisions, and those were the greatest decisions that could have been possibly made by the group of stakeholders that we were afforded the chance to work with. And you're a part of that tapestry, Derek, of people who've invested into the success of the Florida Classic. The great responsibility, from a business standpoint, was always there. The pressure for it to be successful. Now, winning and losing is a whole nother thing. That was only temporary, because you and I both know that when we got those checks from the game, when there's over $1.3 million a piece for our institutions, we both won, and so I had to really make that transformation from an emotional standpoint to say that we are the CEOs of this event. We are part of the executive committee, and those things, bring a whole nother set of responsibilities and another range of emotions that people don't consider who haven't been at the table.
Well, as we get ready to close out this quarter, I want to just share a little nugget that you shared with me. And I still use it to this day. You know, we're sitting in our first Florida Classic meeting, and I'm looking around and looking at the agenda, and you said, Derek, just listen. Don't talk.
Yep.
Just listen. And I think that was a great thing for me because, number one, I got a chance to see the full landscape of what was going on. But then number two, when you try and interject and you had not been that engaged, you're going to miss something. And that was great advice for me because I think at that time, we knew what we needed to do regardless of what was going on in the meeting. Like you said, at the end of the day, we were the CEOs of our respective campuses, and we had to make sure it worked right. And I still use that to this today, and I still tell young administrators that. So as we get ready to transition, we're going to try and see what we can do to have a strong fourth quarter, but we're going to give our sponsors an opportunity to share some information with our viewers, and we'll be right back.
The Mississippi Link is an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, keepers of the knowledge for people who speak the truth since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippilink.com and click on Home Delivery.
Welcome back to the fourth quarter of the Sound the Horn Sports Show, and we have our special guest, Lynn Thompson, and we have spent a whole lot of time down there in Daytona talking about your years as a young person, a student athlete, and an administrator. And before I move on, I'd like to ask this question to current and former athletic directors. Kind of when you were sitting in that chair, what would keep you up at night as an athletic director?
The unknown, because let me tell you, and you know this, my president, one of them at the time, I had the pleasure of serving for 4 presidents. And one of them told me that, Lynn, I can sleep at night knowing that you are managing our athletics program. That pressure kept me up at night because of that great responsibility. But you and I both know, let's see, some clown goes in the dining hall and starts a fight. They don't call the coach, they call the AD. And the AD has to call the coach, you know. But what really kept me awake at night was the awesome responsibility where the buck stopped with me as it related to the educational and the athletic experience of these student athletes. Health and safety was huge, you know, when you would see kids who would be having some challenges, and you know, we had to mentor them and counsel them, and we actually would worry about some of these kids. Those were the things that kept me. It wasn't dollars and cents, you know, because we had a product that we knew was mainstream, and we knew projection-wise whether we could meet our income and revenue projections. Those unknown things about our greatest assets on that campus, which were the students, those are the things that kept me up at night praying, commiserating sometimes with colleagues, late night phone calls, worried about the actions of an 18 to 19-year-old kid and what impact that could have on their lives down the road. Before social media, and now with the advent of social media, it makes it even more important because, you know, some of the kids there would get upset and would go on their Facebook page or Twitter page and just blast everybody, not realizing the impact of that and that people would have access to that forever. And kids would say, well, that's how I felt in the moment. But yeah, that how you felt in that moment now affects your ability to get a job, to move up the ladder. And many times we had to stop recruiting student athletes because their social media, exposed them and their level of thinking and some of the things, how irresponsible they could have been. And they were called into question on that. So those are the things that kept me awake at night. worrying about the furthering of the development of these young men and women.
I think you had a great point because, they're traveling and they're getting back late at night and, making sure they're eating and making sure where they're staying is, it meets the standards of what you're trying to set for your department and your program. Those are the things that, everybody wants to get their pom-pom and go in and scream at a game, but that's just only 3 or 4 hours out of their whole week that we're responsible for as administrators. And I took it to heart, and wins and losses are great, but at the end of the day, if you're not in it for the graduation rate, for that first job that they get, for them coming back and sharing you, as you said earlier, sharing with you how much you made an impact on them, those are the things that are so valuable to me. And I would say that I would echo what you said about what keeps you up at night, because you have 300 to 400 children. They're your children.
Yeah, from all around the world.
You're responsible for them. So, well, we talked about it a little earlier, but if you could maybe share, because you and I were both in our respective chairs at this time on the decision for Bethune to migrate from the MEAC to the SWAC. Maybe share a little bit about that and how that came to fruition.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, 2.5 years before it actually happened, Derek, you and I were in New Orleans at the NCAA AASP conference, and I was talking with a couple of ADs from the SWAC. One in particular, Melvin Hines, who was then the AD at I think Melvin was at Alabama State, and Melvin asked me at that time. He said, "Man, a lot of us are talking about you guys and the possibility of you joining the SWAC." And I said, "Man, you're joking, And he outlined some of the benefits, and he was right. Well, fast forward about 1.5 to 2 years later, we're having that conversation very quietly. FAMU's conversation was public. Bethune was, and so I was charged, along with our CFO, with putting together a case study to compare the opportunities, the benefits, and the liabilities, and the potential challenges of transferring our membership from the MEAC to the SWAC. And we put together a case study at the request of our board of trustees, and and it was time the institution felt to make a change. Instead of going east as we did all those years, the institution wanted to go west. And as you know, this past season was Bethune and FAMU's first real season in the SWAC conference. And I think that the excitement is certainly there. But I think it will take a couple of years or so for institutional knowledge and history to really determine whether or not those moves were the right move for each institution. But in light of what's going on now from a national standpoint, folks are hopping out of conferences like you hop out of a bed and get up and go this direction one morning. They're changing it like you change underwear, basically, and so that is that not only HBCUs, not only the MEAC and the SWAC hasn't had any changes, but that's not to say that it won't change. Because when you look across the landscape, most folks have been talking about the Power 5 conferences, what's going on with the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and now the SEC. You saw what happened in the American Athletic Conference, where those teams jumped and went to the Big 12, and now the AAC pulled some more teams up. And a lot of migration going on. It used to be, Derek, that conferences were made up of like-minded and like-missioned institutions. Now, more so than ever before, it is strictly a business relationship, where you got some institutions that you would look at and say, they don't belong in that footprint. They don't know this, but politics and business makes strange bedfellows. And that's what's happening. And now with my role as the strategic advisor to the commissioner of the MEAC, I've been at the table working on plans Of course, the MEAC now has stabilized with 8 institutions, and those are 8 committed institutions who made the decision that we're going to stay. And Commissioner Sonia Steele, who followed up with legendary Dennis Thomas, had made it clear that the first thing we got to do is remain committed to the league and be the best MEAC that we can be, so that if an opportunity comes for expansion again, then the case will have already been made to those potential institutions that this is the place to be. This past week, you saw all of the jumping UCLA and USC from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten, you know, and now you've got rumors and rumblings about other migrations, not only on that level but the FCS level with the Southland Conference, where 5 of those schools decided to go west to Texas and beyond. You've got the ASUN Conference and the Big South, who's lost a great deal of teams, as well as the OVC. Ohio Valley Conference has lost a lot of teams as well. The NEC Conference, the Big West Conference. Those are FCS caliber conferences that are feeling the pressure from migration from their institutions to other leagues. And it is not going to stop anytime soon until the market stabilizes from a television and exposure platform.
You had a great point, because I think where we are right now, so many conferences, media rights were coming up about the same time.
Yeah.
So with their media rights coming up about the same time, now it's not apples and oranges. The SEC has something that the Big Ten can say, okay, that's a big apple. I want an apple like that.
Right.
And you know, hopefully it will stabilize. But the thing that I'm worried about is a young person from UCLA having to travel, that's a gymnast, all the way over to the University of Maryland. Now, you're getting that money, but how much are you really getting? Are you getting it just to finance? You know, it's. I think we put the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
And then.
And you and I both know, Derek.
Hey, go ahead.
You and I both know that those revenue sports are going to charter airplanes to fly.
Yeah.
But the non-revenue and Olympic sports, they're going to fly commercial. And what does that do potentially to the student-athlete experience from an academic standpoint? Missed class time, those kinds of things, treatment of injuries once you're back on campus. There's a wealth of issues that have to be dealt with that in many cases money does not solve. You know, and so I think, but you know, those institutions said they couldn't turn out $100 million. You know, yeah. I get that. That's from an annual standpoint. I get that. But for institutions like ours in our culture, the historically black colleges and universities, our strength has always been in our ability to be unified in our approach. And there's some institutions make individual decisions to move up into what they perceive may be bigger and better pastures for them. We wish them well. But we also know that there's a greater responsibility that we have to our communities in which we serve, and that's to be the best we can be, but also to make sure that we are protecting the history, the flavor, and the things that make us so unique.
And, you know, in closing, I think that I tell people, almost like you told me, I tell people, just listen, watch, and see. Because
well, you know, there's another part of that conversation, because Derek, you remember the following season you were going to be the chairman of the Florida Classic, you know, and you came on board. I happened to be chairing it that year, and you saw that a vast majority of the discussions had nothing to do with the game, you know, and we had to just focus in on the game operations. And you did a stellar job, and somebody told me the same advice. You know, listen. And you did, and you did a wonderful job. And I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to work with you, man, work alongside you.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think the thing that in my closing remarks, thank you again. And you know, I'm only a phone call away if there's anything I can do to help you. And I always appreciate you having your phone at the ready. But also, too, as it relates to this realignment, let's not let the talking heads get us all bent out of shape. The dust will settle. And we're going to play, and I would tell my staff this, I don't care whatever happens. If the kickoff is at 2, we're going to kick off at 2. You know, so
That's
you
right.
can run around like a chicken with your head cut off, but at 2 o'clock, that ball finna get kicked off. And sooner or later, with all the countdowns that we have in football and everybody coming back starting out the year's going to start, and let's just support our student athletes, support our coaches, and support our institutions. And again, man, Lynn, thanks so much. And to our viewers, we appreciate you for hanging in there with us, and catch us the next time on the Sound the Horn Sports Show. Everybody have a great day. Welcome to Sound the Horn Sports Show. I'm so excited to host this groundbreaking program that will broaden the Jackson sports scene's awareness regionally and nationally. My goal is to highlight sports in Jackson, the state of Mississippi, and nationally by utilizing my 25 years of Division I athletic administration knowledge, and my guests will be experienced leaders in sports. The guests on the show will share a behind-the-scenes, unique, and informative glance of the world of sports. Please join me every Monday and Friday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on